Marcus Jefferson lies face down on the rough concrete outside Greenfield Mall, Officer Keller's knee pressing into his back. The 14-year-old protests his innocence as shoppers gather, phones recording the scene. A black SUV screeches to a halt nearby. 5 individuals in FBI windbreakers emerge, moving with purpose. The lead agent's face transforms from professional calm to undisguised fury as he recognizes the teen. "Get your hands off my son, now." The words slice through the commotion like a blade. Officer Keller freezes, suddenly uncertain. This moment will ignite a reckoning that transforms an entire city. The day had started like any other Saturday for Marcus Jefferson. He woke up early, completed his chores, and texted his friend Jason Mitchell about their planned trip to Greenfield Mall in Lakeside, Michigan. For 3 months, Marcus had been saving every dollar from his weekend lawn mowing job and birthday money from relatives. Today was the day he would finally purchase the premium wireless headphones he had researched extensively online. The TechZone store at Greenfield Mall was having a sale, bringing the normally expensive headphones just within his budget. When Jason's mother dropped them off at the mall entrance, Marcus felt the excitement building. The mall was bustling with weekend shoppers as the two 14-year-olds made their way through the gleaming corridors toward TechZone. Upon entering the sleek electronics store with its bright lighting and modern displays, Marcus immediately noticed the store clerk, Kevin, a thin white man in his 20s with a name tag and blue polo shirt, eyeing him suspiciously. As Marcus examined the headphone display, Kevin followed several steps behind, pretending to reorganize items while keeping a watchful eye. Jason, with his sandy blonde hair and blue eyes, wandered freely through another section of the store without any employee attention. Marcus tried to ignore the scrutiny, focusing instead on comparing the features of different headphone models. He picked up the black and silver model he had researched, examining the packaging carefully. Kevin immediately approached. "Can I help you with something?" he asked, his tone suggesting the opposite of assistance. "Just looking at these headphones," Marcus replied politely, having been taught by his parents to always remain respectful in such situations. "They're $300, Kevin stated flatly, as if the price alone should deter Marcus. "I know. I've been saving up," Marcus replied, maintaining his composure despite the implication that he couldn't afford them. Kevin nodded skeptically and remained hovering nearby as Marcus continued examining the product. Meanwhile, Jason browsed freely, even accidentally knocking over a small display without drawing any employee attention. When Marcus finally approached the counter to make his purchase, he noticed how Kevin's eyes narrowed when he pulled out cash from his wallet. "My birthday was last month," Marcus explained, though he knew he shouldn't have to justify having money. Kevin took the bills and meticulously checked each one for authenticity, holding them up to the light and using a special marker on several. Marcus caught sight of a security guard near the entrance who hadn't been there when they arrived, watching him intently. Simultaneously, a middle-aged white woman slipped a phone accessory into her purse and walked out of the store unnoticed. After receiving his receipt and carefully placing it in his wallet, along with the headphones in their shopping bag, Marcus rejoined Jason near the entrance. As they walked through the mall, Marcus finally let out a deep sigh. "Did you see how that guy was following me around the whole time?" he asked Jason. Jason shrugged. "Really? I didn't notice anything." Marcus pointed out how Kevin had scrutinized his money, and how the security guard had appeared specifically to watch him. "You're being paranoid, man," Jason replied. "That's just how they treat all customers." Marcus shook his head. "No, it's not. Watch." He gestured subtly toward a group of teenagers entering a clothing store. "See how the security guard is only watching the black kid in the group, even though the white kid with the backpack would be easier to hide stuff in?" Jason frowned, finally beginning to notice what Marcus experienced regularly. "That happens to you a lot?" he asked, genuine confusion in his voice. "Every time I go shopping," Marcus confirmed. "My dad calls it shopping while black." They decided to visit the food court before heading home, with Marcus checking his phone to find a text from his mother asking him to pick up dinner on the way home. "My dad's working late again," Marcus explained as they ordered burgers and fries. "Big case at the FBI field office. He's been pulling 12-hour days all week." Jason nodded, mouthful of food. "That's cool, though." Your dad's like, "What? The boss there?" Marcus smiled slightly. "Special agent in charge. Regional director for the whole office. Still means he misses a lot of my debate competitions." Back at TechZone, the manager approached Kevin and the security guard. "That teenager in the gray hoodie," he whispered. "The one who just bought the expensive headphones. Keep an eye out. Something didn't feel right. The security guard nodded, pressing his radio. Security to all units. Be advised, we have a suspicious teenager, African-American male, gray hoodie, possibly involved in shoplifting. Last seen heading toward the food court. Officer Brian Keller was having a bad day, even before the call came through on his patrol car radio. The 28-year-old officer had received yet another warning from his sergeant yesterday about his growing file of civilian complaints. 3 excessive force allegations in the past year, all involving minority suspects, and none resulting in actual convictions. His sergeant had been clear: improve his record or face disciplinary action. The dispatcher's voice crackled over the radio. Unit 17, we have a report of possible shoplifting at Greenfield Mall. Suspect is an African-American male teenager, approximately 14 to 16 years old, wearing a gray hoodie. Security reports suspicious behavior in the electronics store. Keller immediately responded, seeing an opportunity for a straightforward arrest that could help improve his standing in the department. Unit 17 responding, he said, flipping on his lights but not his siren as he accelerated toward the mall. He had been patrolling just 2 blocks away. At the food court, Marcus and Jason were finishing their meals, completely unaware of the alert that had been issued. So, are you going to use those new headphones for your debate prep? Jason asked, gathering their empty food containers. Marcus nodded, excitement returning as he thought about his purchase. Yeah, the noise cancellation will help me focus when I'm writing arguments. The state championship is only 6 weeks away. He pulled out his phone and called his mother. Hey, Mom, he said when she answered. Yes, I got the headphones. They had exactly the ones I wanted. He listened for a moment. Sure, I can pick up dinner from Golden Dragon on the way home. Is Dad still at the office? Another pause. Okay. Tell him I hope the case goes well. Doctor, Diana Jefferson, a prominent psychologist specializing in trauma counseling, reminded her son to be home before dark and to text when he was on his way. Your father mentioned his team might be making arrests in that corruption case soon, she said. He's been working toward this for months. Marcus sighed slightly. Yeah, I know. That's why he missed my regional debate finals last weekend. The hint of disappointment in his voice was unmistakable. He watched the video I sent him, though, right? His mother's slight hesitation told him everything. He's been so busy, honey. He said he'll watch it tonight for sure. After ending the call, Marcus explained to Jason about his father's current case. He's been working on this big public corruption investigation. I barely see him lately. Jason attempted to relate. My dad works late sometimes, too. Last week, he didn't get home until like 8 o'clock 3 nights in a row. Marcus just nodded, knowing Jason couldn't really understand the difference between occasionally working until 8 and regularly missing family dinners, weekend events, and competitions due to the pressures of being one of the highest-ranking black FBI officials in the region. As they gathered their belongings and Marcus carefully secured his new headphones in his backpack, they headed toward the mall exit. I should get home, Marcus said. My mom wants me to grab Chinese food for dinner. They walked through the main corridor, passing families, couples, and groups of shoppers, planning to catch the bus that would take them to their neighborhood. Neither boy noticed the mall security guard who had followed them at a distance, now speaking into his radio and gesturing toward them as they approached the exit. Outside in the parking lot, Officer Keller had just arrived and was speaking with another security guard who had been alerted to watch for Marcus. That's him, the guard said, pointing toward the exit where Marcus and Jason were just emerging into the bright afternoon sunlight. The one in the gray hoodie with the backpack. Mall security reported he was acting suspicious in Tech Zone and may have concealed merchandise. Officer Keller nodded, radioing dispatch. Unit 17 on scene with visual on suspect. African-American male teenager, proceeding with investigation. He paused, then added, Suspect has a backpack that could contain concealed merchandise, or possibly a weapon, requesting backup as a precaution. There had been no mention of a weapon in the original call, and nothing in Marcus's behavior suggested he was armed, but Keller had learned that suggesting the possibility of a weapon ensured a faster response from backup units and justified more aggressive tactics. The bright afternoon sunlight momentarily blinded Marcus and Jason as they pushed through the glass doors of Greenfield Mall's main entrance. They were laughing about a shared joke, Marcus adjusting the straps of his backpack containing his prized new headphones, when a sharp voice cut through their conversation. You there! Stop right where you are and put your hands where I can see them. Officer Brian Keller approached rapidly from the right, one hand on his holstered weapon. Marcus froze instantly, years of careful parental instructions kicking in automatically. Jason, however, looked confused, continuing to move forward until he registered the police uniform. "Hands up! Now!" Keller barked, his voice carrying across the parking lot and drawing the attention of nearby shoppers. Marcus slowly raised his hands, his heart hammering in his chest. "What's going on, officer?" he asked, his voice deliberately calm and respectful, despite the fear flooding his system. "I didn't do anything." Officer Keller closed the distance between them, his expression stern. "We received reports of shoplifting. Turn around slowly, and keep those hands where I can see them." Marcus complied immediately, while Jason stood dumbfounded beside him. "Officer, we didn't steal anything," Marcus explained carefully. "I just bought headphones at TechZone. I have the receipt in my wallet. I can show you if you'd like." Keller ignored the offer, instead instructing Marcus to place his hands on his head. "What about me?" Jason asked, finding his voice. "Why aren't you checking me too?" Keller barely glanced at Jason. "Step back. This doesn't concern you." Jason moved closer instead. "But we were together the whole time. If you're checking him, you should check me too." With a quick motion, Keller shoved Jason backward. "I said step back. Do not interfere with police business." Jason stumbled, nearly falling. By now, several mall patrons had stopped to observe the scene unfolding before them. A small crowd was gathering at a cautious distance, and Marcus noticed with a sinking feeling that many had their phones out recording the interaction. Among them was Sophia Lynn, a 24-year-old law student, who immediately recognized the troubling dynamics of the situation. She began not just recording but live streaming the encounter to her social media accounts, narrating quietly as she did so. "I'm witnessing what appears to be racial profiling outside Greenfield Mall in Lakeside. A young black teenager is being detained while his white friend is being ignored. Despite the humiliation of being treated like a criminal in public, Marcus maintained his composure, following every instruction precisely as Officer Keller circled him, now ordering him to spread his legs and place his hands on a nearby concrete pillar. "Sir, I have the receipt for my purchase," Marcus repeated, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "It's in my wallet in my back right pocket. I have permission to reach for it." Keller's response was immediate and harsh. "Did I ask for a receipt? Keep your hands exactly where they are and stop talking." The growing crowd murmured, some filming, others watching with expressions ranging from concern to indifference to misplaced satisfaction. Marcus heard snippets of their commentary. "What did he do? Always trouble with those kids. That officer seems aggressive. Someone should call his parents." Jason had recovered from the push and pulled out his phone, frantically scrolling through contacts. "I'm calling your parents, Marcus," he called out. Officer Keller, agitated by the gathering crowd and their cameras, suddenly escalated the situation. Perhaps it was the pressure of being watched. Perhaps it was frustration from his recent reprimands. Or perhaps it was simply prejudice finding its expression. But his next actions shocked everyone present. "I said stop moving," he shouted, though Marcus had remained perfectly still. Without warning, Keller grabbed Marcus by the shoulder, kicked his feet out from under him, and drove him face first toward the concrete. Marcus felt the rough surface scrape against his cheek as Keller's weight came down on him, a knee pressing painfully into his back. The crowd gasped collectively. "He wasn't resisting," someone shouted. "He's just a kid," called another. Jason's voice rose above the others. "What are you doing? He didn't do anything wrong." Sophia Lynn moved closer, her live stream now capturing everything in detail. "The officer has just tackled an apparently compliant teenage boy to the ground with excessive force," she narrated, her voice tight with controlled anger. "The boy appears to be approximately 14 years old and was not resisting in any way." Marcus felt the cold metal of handcuffs against his wrists as Officer Keller roughly secured his hands behind his back. The concrete scraped against his cheek, and he tasted blood from a split lip. Despite the pain and humiliation, he remembered his father's instructions. "Stay calm, don't resist, survive the encounter." "Please, sir," he managed to say, his voice muffled against the ground. "I have the receipt. I didn't steal anything." Keller ignored him, beginning to recite his rights as he patted down Marcus's pockets. Jason was now on the phone, his voice frantic. "Mrs. Jefferson? It's Jason. We're at the mall and the police have Marcus on the ground. He didn't do anything wrong. They're saying he stole something, but he didn't. He bought headphones and has the receipt and everything. In the growing commotion, no one noticed a black SUV turning into the mall parking lot, still several hundred yards away but approaching quickly. Special Agent in Charge David Jefferson stood at the front of the FBI field office conference room, addressing his team with the focused intensity that had earned him both respect and advancement through the Bureau's ranks. At 48, he carried himself with the straight-back discipline of his military background, his precisely trimmed beard showing just hints of gray that matched the temples of his close-cropped hair. "The indictments are nearly ready," he explained, gesturing toward the complex network diagram projected on the screen behind him. 2 years of work tracking these corruption channels through the mayor's office, police department, and county administration. The 5 agents seated around the table nodded, each intimately familiar with their piece of the sprawling investigation that had consumed the Lakeside field office for months. David's phone vibrated in his pocket for the 3rd time in 10 minutes, but he ignored it, focusing on the task at hand. The corruption case represented not just the largest investigation of his 20-year FBI career, but a potential watershed moment for the city of Lakeside. "Agent Washington," he continued, turning to a formidable woman with keen eyes who specialized in financial crimes, "your analysis of the offshore accounts confirms what we suspected. Police Chief Morris has been receiving kickbacks from the private prison contractor through Councilman Hayes as intermediary." Agent Carter raised his hand slightly. "Sir, your phone keeps buzzing. Might be important." David frowned slightly but reached for his phone. 6 missed calls from his wife Diana, 3 from his son's friend Jason, and dozens of text message notifications. Unusual enough to break his typical protocol. "Excuse me a moment," he said, stepping toward the corner of the room as he opened the messages. The first text from Jason made his blood run cold. "Mr. Jefferson Police have Marcus on the ground at Mall Help." The subsequent texts included a link to a live stream. David's hands were suddenly unsteady as he tapped the link, and the video filled his screen. There was his son, face pressed against the concrete, a police officer's knee in his back, handcuffed and bleeding slightly from the lip. The timestamp showed the stream was live. Without explanation, David turned to his team. "We need to move. Now." Something in his voice triggered immediate response from the assembled agents. No questions, just rapid movement as they gathered credentials, weapons, and jackets. "Marcus is in trouble," was all he needed to say as they rushed toward the parking garage. Agent Carter, David's second-in-command and friend of 15 years, took the SUV keys. "I'll drive. You make calls." As the vehicle screeched out of the garage, David called his wife while the video continued playing on Agent Washington's phone. Diana Jefferson answered immediately. "David, Jason called me. Marcus is being detained by police at the mall. They're saying he stole something." Her voice was controlled but tight with fear, the professional calm of a clinical psychologist battling maternal panic. "I'm seeing it now," David replied. "We're on our way. 5 minutes out." "Are you at your office?" Diana confirmed she was in the middle of a therapy session but was ending it immediately. "I'll meet you there," she said. "David, be careful." The unspoken warning hung between them. Be careful because you're a black man confronting a white officer. Be careful because your FBI credentials might not be enough. Be careful because this system was not designed to protect people who look like you or our son. As Agent Carter navigated traffic with emergency lights flashing, David addressed his team. Marcus went to the mall with his friend Jason to buy headphones. Now he's being detained on suspicion of theft. The officer has him handcuffed on the ground. He didn't need to explain the implications. Every agent in that vehicle understood exactly what they were witnessing. "Looks like racial profiling, sir," Agent Ramirez said quietly, watching the live stream over Agent Washington's shoulder. David nodded grimly. The store clerk probably followed him around the store. Security guard watched him, and someone called it in despite him making a legitimate purchase. It was a scenario they had discussed at home many times. The talk that black parents give their children about police interactions had been a regular topic in the Jefferson household since Marcus was 10. David remembered sitting Marcus down after a neighbor's son had been beaten during a traffic stop 2 years ago. "If an officer stops you, move slowly. Keep your hands visible. Say yes, sir, or yes, ma'am. Don't argue even if they're wrong. Your job is to survive the encounter, not win an argument." Marcus had nodded solemnly. "I promise, Dad, but will that really protect me?" The question had haunted David ever since. His answer had been equally solemn. "I promise I will always protect you. Now that promise was being tested. Agent Carter pushed the SUV to its limits, weaving through traffic as Agent Patel monitored the police band radio. Responding officer is Brian Keller, Patel reported. He's called for backup, claiming potential weapon in a backpack. No evidence of that from the video. David's jaw tightened. Officer Keller. The name was familiar from whispers around the corruption investigation. Not directly implicated yet, but a name that had come up in connection with excessive force complaints. As they neared the mall, David made a quick decision. We approach as federal agents responding to a situation. Professional by the book. Agent Washington. Secure the perimeter and manage the crowd. Agents Patel and Rivera. You'll flank the officer. Agent Carter with me as primary contact. Agent Ramirez. Document everything and check Marcus's condition. The team acknowledged their roles as Carter pulled into the mall parking lot. Through the windshield, David could see the gathered crowd, the patrol car with flashing lights, and on the ground, his son. His heart hammered in his chest, but his voice remained steady. Remember, we're FBI first, family second. But as they exited the vehicle, every agent knew that distinction had never been more blurred. The black SUV screeched to a halt 30 feet from where Officer Keller knelt beside the prone teenager. 5 individuals in FBI windbreakers emerged simultaneously, moving with coordinated precision that immediately commanded attention from the gathered crowd. David Jefferson led the group, his credentials already visible in his extended hand, his expression a masterclass in contained fury. Federal agents, he announced, his voice carrying across the parking lot with authority that made heads turn. Officer, release that young man immediately. Officer Keller looked up, momentarily confused by the unexpected federal presence. This is a local police matter, he called back, not moving his knee from Marcus's back. Suspected shoplifting. I have jurisdiction here. David continued his approach, the 4 agents spreading out in a practice formation around him. I am Special Agent, in charge David Jefferson, Federal Bureau of Investigation, he stated, his tone leaving no room for argument. And you are currently using excessive force on a minor who has committed no crime. The crowd murmured, phones still recording as the confrontation took an unexpected turn. Officer Keller's face flushed with anger. With all due respect, sir, you have no jurisdiction over a local shoplifting case. I'm following department procedures for a suspected theft. David stopped precisely 6 feet from Officer Keller, close enough to establish dominance but maintaining professional distance. That minor is my son, he said, his voice dangerously quiet, and he has a receipt for his purchase in his wallet. Check his right back pocket. A collective gasp rippled through the onlookers. Agent Washington had already begun establishing a perimeter, calmly asking the crowd to step back while ensuring their right to observe and record remained unimpeded. Agents Patel and Rivera had taken positions on either side of Officer Keller, not threatening but unmistakably present. Agent Carter remained at David's side, while Agent Ramirez documented the scene with his phone camera. Officer Keller appeared momentarily frozen, suddenly aware of the precariousness of his position. Sophia Lynn, still live streaming, narrated the development. The FBI has just arrived on scene, and apparently the teenager being detained is the son of an FBI agent. The plot thickens. Jason pushed through the crowd. Mr. Jefferson, I called you and Mrs. Jefferson. They said Marcus was shoplifting, but he bought headphones. He has the receipt. David acknowledged Jason with a slight nod, but kept his focus entirely on Officer Keller. Release my son. Now. Officer Keller's radio crackled as backup announced their imminent arrival. He seemed to calculate his options, clearly reluctant to back down in front of witnesses, but increasingly aware of the potential consequences. I'm conducting a lawful investigation, he insisted, though his voice had lost some of its earlier confidence. If he has a receipt, I'll verify it, but I need to follow protocol. Agent Carter spoke for the first time, his voice deceptively casual. Interesting protocol. Our Federal Civil Rights Division might want to review that protocol, particularly as it pertains to use of force on compliant minors. 2 police cruisers pulled into the parking lot, lights flashing. Lieutenant Peterson, a veteran officer in his 50s, emerged from the first vehicle, quickly assessing the volatile situation. He approached with palms visible, nodding respectfully to David. Sack Jefferson, he said, recognition in his eyes. What's the situation here? Before David could respond, Officer Keller jumped in. Suspected shoplifting, sir. I was conducting a proper stop when federal agents interfered. David's expression remained impassive, but his eyes conveyed volumes. Lieutenant Peterson, your officer tackled my 14-year-old son to the ground despite his full compliance, refused to check the receipt that would verify his lawful purchase, and is now prolonging his detainment despite clear evidence of innocence. Lieutenant Peterson glanced at the gathering of FBI agents, the growing crowd, and the multiple cameras recording the incident. Officer Keller, he said carefully, release the young man while we sort this out. Keller hesitated. Sir, protocol states. Peterson cut him off. That's an order, officer. With visible reluctance, Keller removed his knee from Marcus's back and unlocked the handcuffs. Marcus slowly pushed himself up. His cheek scraped raw, lip bleeding slightly. David maintained his professional demeanor with supreme effort, but Agent Ramirez had already moved to Marcus's side, quietly checking his injuries. Are you okay, Marcus? David asked, his voice softening slightly. Marcus nodded, standing straight despite his disheveled appearance. Yes, sir. I'm okay. David turned back to Lieutenant Peterson. My son purchased headphones at TechZone with his own money. He has the receipt. This entire incident represents profiling, excessive force, and a violation of his civil rights. Peterson nodded grimly. We'll need statements from everyone involved. A third police vehicle arrived, and Police Chief Morris stepped out, his face a mask of concern as he approached. SAC Jefferson, he said, extending his hand. I just heard about this unfortunate incident. Perhaps we should move this discussion somewhere more private. David made no move to accept the handshake. Chief Morris. There's nothing private about this discussion. Your officer detained and assaulted my son without cause in full public view. The accountability will be equally public. Chief Morris's smile tightened. I understand your concern as a father, but I'm sure Officer Keller was simply following procedure based on the information he received. Jason had made his way to Marcus's side. The store clerk followed him around the whole time he was shopping, he said loudly. They didn't do that to any of the white customers. I saw it happen. Sophia Lynn approached, her phone still recording. Excuse me, Sac Jefferson? I'm Sophia Lynn, second-year law student at Lakeside University. I've been live-streaming this incident, and I'd be happy to provide you with the full unedited video for your reference. David nodded gratefully. Thank you, Miss Lynn. Agent Ramirez will take your contact information. Media vans had begun arriving at the perimeter of the scene, drawn by the viral live stream and police scanner activity. Community members continued to gather, some expressing support for Marcus, others defending the police. The tensions of a divided city were playing out in microcosm around them. Chief Morris lowered his voice. David, let's be reasonable here. I'm sure we can resolve this without making it a federal case. David's phone rang, interrupting the chief's attempted de-escalation. He checked the screen, then looked up with grim satisfaction. That would be the governor, Chief Morris. It seems this incident has already reached the state level. And yes, it absolutely is a federal case now. The fluorescent lights of Lakeside General Hospital's emergency room cast harsh shadows across Marcus's face as a doctor gently cleaned the abrasions on his cheek. You're lucky, the doctor commented, applying antiseptic that made Marcus wince. No stitches needed, but you'll have some bruising for a week or so. Diana Jefferson sat beside the examination table, her hand resting protectively on her son's arm. As a clinical psychologist specializing in trauma, she recognized the signs of shock beneath Marcus's carefully maintained composure. David paced nearby, alternating between taking calls and conferring with his team in the hallway. His professional mask remained firmly in place, but Diana could see the rage and anguish churning beneath the surface. How's the shoulder feeling now? She asked Marcus, noting how he favored his right arm. Marcus shrugged, then grimaced at the movement. It's just sore. Where he twisted it behind me, he replied, his voice deliberately steady. The doctor said it's a mild sprain. Diana nodded, making mental notes about his physical and emotional state. Though Marcus was trying to project strength, the slight tremor in his hands and the way his eyes darted toward every new sound revealed the psychological impact of the incident. The hospital corridor outside was a hive of activity. 2 uniformed officers stood awkwardly near the nursing station, ostensibly providing security but clearly monitoring the situation for their department. Agent Washington maintained a professional but firm distance from them, ensuring no one interfered with the family. David ended his call and returned to Marcus's side. The director himself called, he said quietly to Diana. This has reached national attention. The live stream has over 1 million views already. Diana's expression tightened. So our son's trauma is now public spectacle, she said, her voice clinical, but with an undercurrent of maternal fury. How are we handling the media circus outside? David ran a hand over his face, a rare gesture of fatigue. Agent Rivera is managing press inquiries with a standard no comment pending investigation statement. I've asked for privacy, but he didn't need to complete the thought. Their family's privacy had already been shattered. A soft knock at the door announced Agent Carter. Sir, Mayor Richardson has arrived. He's requesting to speak with you and the family. David exchanged a glance with Diana, who gave a slight nod. 5 minutes, David replied, and only in our presence. Mayor Anthony Richardson entered the room moments later, his usual confident demeanor subdued. He nodded respectfully to David and Diana before turning his attention to Marcus. Young man, on behalf of the city of Lakeside, I want to express my deepest regrets about what happened to you today. Marcus straightened, meeting the mayor's gaze directly. Thank you, sir, he responded, the polite response automatic. Mayor Richardson turned to David and Diana. I want you to know I'm taking this incident extremely seriously. I've already ordered a full investigation into the actions of Officer Keller and the policies that led to this situation. Diana raised an eyebrow. And Chief Morris? Will your investigation extend to departmental culture and leadership? The mayor shifted uncomfortably. We're examining all aspects of the incident, he replied diplomatically before lowering his voice. I understand you're both upset, and rightfully so. But I'm hoping we can work together to address this situation constructively without allowing it to become a divisive issue for our community. David's expression remained impassive. With respect, Mayor Richardson, this is already a divisive issue. It has been since long before today. The difference is now it can't be ignored or hidden. Before the mayor could respond, the door opened again, and Police Chief Morris entered without knocking. Mayor, a word? He said, barely acknowledging the Jefferson family. David stepped forward. Chief Morris, this is a private medical room, and you were not invited in. The chief bristled. I understand emotions are running high, but there's been a misunderstanding here. Officer Keller was responding to a legitimate report. Diana cut him off. A report based on racial profiling, which your officer escalated through excessive force against a compliant minor. That's not a misunderstanding. It's a pattern. Chief Morris's face flushed. Dr. Jefferson, with all due respect, police work is complicated. Split-second decisions must be made. Save it, David interrupted. We've reviewed the video. Officer Keller had over 4 minutes of interaction before he decided to take my son to the ground. There was no split-second decision, only a deliberate escalation. The tension in the room was palpable as Mayor Richardson attempted to mediate. Let's all take a step back. Chief Morris, perhaps this isn't the best time or place. The Jefferson family deserves some privacy. As if to punctuate the mayor's point, a nurse appeared at the door. Excuse me, but there's another family here to see Marcus? Jason Mitchell and his parents? Diana nodded gratefully. Yes, please let them in. Jason entered first, his parents Michael and Karen Mitchell following hesitantly. Jason immediately went to Marcus's side. Dude, are you okay? That was insane. Despite everything, Marcus managed a small smile at his friend's familiar energy. The Mitchell parents approached more cautiously, clearly uncomfortable. Karen Mitchell spoke first. Dr. Jefferson, SAC Jefferson. We're so sorry about what happened. Jason told us everything. Michael Mitchell nodded, his expression troubled. We knew these things happened, but seeing it happen to someone we know. To Marcus, he trailed off, seemingly at a loss for words. Diana recognized the awakening happening before her eyes. The Mitchells were confronting their own privilege for perhaps the first time, seeing how differently the world treated their son compared to his black friend. Thank you for coming, she said simply. Chief Morris, seeing an opportunity, stepped forward. Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell, I want to assure you that this incident is not representative of our department's usual procedures. Michael Mitchell frowned. With all due respect, Chief, my son witnessed the whole thing. The officer ignored him completely and targeted Marcus, despite them doing exactly the same things. How is that not representative? Before Chief Morris could formulate a response, a commotion in the hallway drew everyone's attention. Marcus's school principal, Dr. Elaine Carter, was arguing with the officers at the door. "I'm his principal, for heaven's sake. The family knows me." Agent Washington intervened, and after a brief consultation with David, allowed the principal to enter. Dr. Carter rushed to Marcus's bedside. "Marcus, I came as soon as I heard. The video is all over social media." She turned to David and Diana. "The school community is in shock. Several teachers and students have reached out asking how they can support your family." The room was becoming crowded, the various social worlds of the Jefferson family colliding in the wake of the incident. David's phone rang yet again. He checked the display and excused himself to take the call in the hallway. Diana recognized the subtle shift in his posture. FBI business, not family business. Mayor Richardson seized the opportunity to make his exit, citing other pressing matters but promising to stay in touch. Chief Morris lingered, clearly wanting to manage the situation, until Diana fixed him with a pointed stare. "I believe my son needs rest now, Chief Morris." The dismissal was polite, but firm. As the room gradually cleared, leaving only the Jefferson family and Jason, Marcus's carefully maintained composure began to crack. His hands trembled more visibly, and his breathing quickened. Diana recognized the delayed onset of acute stress response. "It's okay, Marcus," she said softly. "You're safe now. You did everything right." Marcus nodded, but his eyes filled with tears he had been holding back for hours. "They didn't even check the receipt, Mom," he said, his voice finally breaking. "I told them I had it. I did everything Dad taught me. I was polite. I didn't resist. But they still..." Diana held him as the emotional dam broke, her own eyes filling with tears even as she maintained her professional understanding of his trauma response. David returned to find his wife and son in this embrace, the sight stopping him in the doorway. For a moment, the special agent in charge disappeared, leaving only a father witnessing his child's pain. He crossed the room in 3 strides and wrapped his arms around both of them. "I'm sorry, Marcus," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." In that moment of family unity, David's phone buzzed with a notification. Officer Brian Keller had just given an unauthorized television interview, claiming he had followed protocol and suggesting that David Jefferson was abusing his FBI position for a personal vendetta. The battle was just beginning. 1 week after the incident at Greenfield Mall, Lakeside had transformed into a city visibly divided. In Centennial Park, across from City Hall, 2 groups of protesters faced each other across a police barricade. On one side, signs reading "Justice for Marcus" and "End Racial Profiling" waved alongside Black Lives Matter banners. On the opposite side, supporters of the police department gathered with their own messages, "Back the Blue" and "Support Officer Keller." The physical division in the park mirrored the fractured response throughout the community. The Lakeside Police Officers Association had released a strongly worded statement defending Officer Keller, claiming he had followed department protocol for responding to a reported theft and was being scapegoated to appease political pressure. Civil rights organizations had countered with their own statements, citing the incident as yet another example of the systemic racial bias that pervades law enforcement interactions with young black men. Inside City Hall, an emergency council meeting had devolved into shouting as Councilman Hayes, a longtime supporter of the police department, clashed with Councilwoman Diaz over proposed reforms to police practices. "This rush to judgment based on a deceptively edited video is unfair to our officers who risk their lives daily," Hayes argued, his face flushed with anger. "We need to let the internal investigation run its course before making any policy changes." Councilwoman Diaz stood her ground. The video wasn't deceptively edited. It was a continuous live stream, watched by over 1 million people. And this is hardly a rush to judgment when we've had similar complaints about Officer Keller before, all of which were buried by internal affairs. At FBI headquarters, David Jefferson faced challenges of his own. Deputy Director Carson had requested a video conference that morning, his concern evident even through the digital interface. "David, no one disputes that what happened to Marcus was wrong," he began, his tone carefully measured. "But your personal involvement in this case creates potential conflicts of interest, especially given your office's ongoing corruption investigation involving the Lakeside Police Department." David maintained his professional composure, though the suggestion that he should step back from either case rankled deeply. With respect, sir, I've maintained clear separation between my personal advocacy for my son and the Bureau's investigation. Agent Carter has taken lead on all corruption case elements while I've been managing the civil rights aspects of Marcus's incident. Deputy Director Carson nodded, though his expression remained troubled. The optics are complicated, David. Officer Keller's television appearance has turned this into a public relations issue for both departments. David's jaw tightened. Officer Keller's unauthorized interview contained multiple falsehoods and a direct attack on my integrity. That should be the focus, not the optics of me protecting my son. After the call ended, David sat alone in his office, reviewing case files while trying to ignore the persistent ache in his chest whenever he thought about Marcus's scraped face and the terror in his eyes. At the Jefferson home, Diana sat with her laptop at the kitchen table, methodically documenting every detail of the incident for the formal complaints she had filed against Officer Keller and the department. As both a mother and a psychologist specializing in trauma, she approached the task with unique insight into the psychological damage inflicted on her son. Beside her legal notes were her clinical observations of Marcus's symptoms: difficulty sleeping, hypervigilance, intrusive thoughts about the incident, and reluctance to leave the house. The doorbell rang, and Diana checked the security camera before opening the door to Alicia Washington, her friend and one of David's most trusted agents. "Thanks for coming," Diana said, leading her into the kitchen. "Marcus should be down soon. He's been journaling upstairs." Alicia nodded, setting down a folder on the table. "David asked me to bring these incident reports for your records. How's Marcus doing?" Diana sighed, putting on a brave face, but he's struggling. He hasn't been back to school yet. The thought of walking through crowds of people who've seen the video. She trailed off, the implications clear. Alicia nodded in understanding. "And the threats? Any more since yesterday?" Diana's expression darkened. "2 more calls from blocked numbers. Nothing specific, just angry people, saying we're attacking good cops and causing trouble. I've documented everything." Footsteps on the stairs announced Marcus's arrival. He entered the kitchen with careful composure, the scrape on his cheek now scabbed over but still visible. "Hi, Agent Washington," he said politely. Alicia smiled warmly. "Hey, Marcus. How's the shoulder feeling?" "Better," he replied, though the way he still favored it suggested otherwise. "Dad's not with you?" "He's still at the office." "Big developments in the corruption case." Marcus nodded, a flicker of disappointment crossing his face. His father had been working even longer hours since the incident, caught between the demands of the corruption investigation and advocating for his son. "Jason called again," Marcus said to his mother. "He wants me to come back to school. Says lots of kids are supporting me." Diana studied her son carefully. "Do you feel ready for that?" Marcus shrugged his good shoulder. "Not really. But I was thinking about what you said, about not letting this define me or control my life." His voice strengthened slightly. "I want to start a student group about racial profiling and knowing your rights. Maybe if more kids understood." Diana felt a surge of pride mixed with concern. Her son was finding purpose in his trauma, a positive psychological response, but she worried about the additional attention it would bring. At Lakeside High School, Jason Mitchell was discovering what it meant to be an ally in a divided community. "You're only defending him because he's your friend," said Tyler, a basketball teammate, as they changed after practice. "You didn't see what happened before the video started." Jason slammed his locker shut. "I was literally there the entire time, Tyler. I was with Marcus when he bought the headphones. The clerk followed him around the store and ignored me. The whole thing was racist from start to finish." Several teammates shifted uncomfortably, while others nodded in agreement. "My dad says the officer was just doing his job," another boy commented, "and that the FBI guy is using his position to make trouble." Jason felt his face flush with anger. His name is Special Agent in Charge Jefferson, and he was protecting his son who was being assaulted for no reason. The locker room had become a microcosm of the larger community division, with students taking sides based largely on what they heard at home. Meanwhile, at the FBI field office, Agent Washington returned to find David in deep concentration, reviewing security footage from Greenfield Mall. "The mall claims the footage from Tech Zone during Marcus's visit is corrupted," he said without looking up. "Convenient." Agent Washington set a coffee on his desk. "Sir, I've been thinking about the timing of this incident. David looked up, recognizing her tone. Agent Washington continued, "It seems strange that of all the teenagers who could have been profiled that day, it was your son who was targeted, especially given our ongoing investigation into the department." David had considered this possibility himself, but had been hesitant to voice it. "You think this wasn't random? It wasn't a question. I think it's worth exploring whether Officer Keller knew exactly who Marcus was," she replied carefully, especially given his connection to Chief Morris. David turned back to his computer, pulling up a different file. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a financial record. Officer Keller was recently assigned to the mall detail, despite his history of complaints. That assignment came directly from Chief Morris, bypassing normal rotation protocols. Their eyes met in silent understanding. The question wasn't whether Marcus had been profiled because of his race. The question was whether he had also been targeted because of who his father was. David Jefferson sat alone in his home office at 3 a.m, the blue glow of his computer screen illuminating stacks of documents spread across his desk. For weeks he had maintained a careful separation between the corruption investigation and the incident involving Marcus, but patterns were emerging that could no longer be ignored. On one monitor, he reviewed financial records showing suspicious transfers from Lakeside Correctional Partners, a private prison corporation, to an offshore account linked to Police Chief Morris. On another screen, arrest statistics revealed a disturbing pattern. Over the past 18 months, arrests for minor offenses had increased 78% in predominantly minority neighborhoods, while declining slightly in wider, more affluent areas. The timing corresponded exactly with the city's contract renewal with Lakeside Correctional Partners, which included occupancy guarantees requiring the local jail to maintain at least 85% capacity. David rubbed his tired eyes, the implications becoming clearer with each document he reviewed. Agent Washington's discoveries earlier that day had accelerated his private investigation. Officer Keller's reassignment to Greenfield Mall had initially seemed like a routine deployment, but deeper analysis revealed something more strategic. The mall sat at the intersection of several demographically diverse neighborhoods and had become an unofficial social hub for teenagers from across the city. Under the guise of preventing shoplifting, Keller and several other officers with concerning records had been strategically placed to generate arrests predominantly targeting minority youth. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Diana stood in the doorway wearing a robe and concerned expression. "It's after 3, David," she said quietly. "You need to sleep." David gestured toward the monitors. "I think Marcus was deliberately targeted, not randomly, but specifically, because he's my son." Diana entered the room, scanning the documents with a clinical eye. "You think they wanted to provoke you, to discredit you before your corruption case goes public. It wasn't a question." David nodded grimly. "Chief Morris has known about our investigation for months. He couldn't identify exactly what we had, but he knew we were close. What better way to undermine the case than to make it seem like I have a personal vendetta against the department?" Diana sat on the edge of the desk, her expression thoughtful. That would explain the media response. "How quickly certain outlets portrayed you as an angry father abusing your position." She paused, but they couldn't have known Marcus would be at the mall that day. "They didn't need to," David replied. "The pattern suggests they've been profiling and harassing minority teens throughout Lakeside. Marcus was bound to encounter it eventually. When he did, Officer Keller recognized him and saw an opportunity." The house fell silent except for the soft hum of the computers. Upstairs, their son slept fitfully, still experiencing nightmares about being pinned to the concrete. Diana finally broke the silence. "How are you going to handle this without seeming to confirm their narrative about your personal involvement?" David's expression hardened. "By building a case so airtight that my personal connection becomes irrelevant." At the Lakeside Police Department the following morning, Lieutenant Peterson sat in his office reviewing personnel files with increasing concern. 20 years on, the force had given him a strong moral compass, and what he was discovering troubled him deeply. Officer Keller's file contained multiple civilian complaints that had been systematically downgraded or dismissed by internal affairs. More disturbing was the pattern of his deployments over the past year, always to locations with high minority populations, and always with directives emphasizing proactive enforcement. A knock at his door preceded the arrival of Sergeant Rodriguez, another veteran officer with a reputation for integrity. "You wanted to see these?" Rodriguez asked, sliding a folder across the desk. "Mall security incident reports for the past 6 months." Peterson thanked him, noting the sergeant's troubled expression. "Something on your mind, Rodriguez?" The sergeant hesitated. "Sir, there's talk that Chief Morris is pressuring officers to stand behind Keller, regardless of what they actually think about the incident." Peterson nodded slowly. "And what do you think about the incident?" Rodriguez met his gaze directly. "I think Keller was wrong, sir, and I think the department is more concerned with protecting itself than admitting it." Across town, in a coffee shop near Lakeside University, Agent Washington met discreetly with Sophia Lynn, the law student whose live stream had captured the incident with Marcus. "Thank you for meeting me," Agent Washington said, sliding into the booth. "Your footage has been invaluable to our investigation." Sophia nodded, opening her laptop. "I've been going through other incidents I've documented over the past year. There's a pattern emerging." She turned the screen to show a spreadsheet tracking police interactions she had witnessed or recorded. After the contract with Lakeside Correctional Partners was renewed, there was a dramatic increase in aggressive policing targeting minority youth, particularly around the mall. Agent Washington studied the data with growing interest. "You've done remarkable work here. Have you shown this to anyone else?" Sophia shook her head. "I was planning to use it for my law journal article on discriminatory policing, but after what happened with Marcus," she paused. "This is bigger than an academic paper." At Lakeside High School, Marcus had returned for his first full day since the incident. The stares and whispers followed him through the hallway, but so did supportive nods and fist bumps from students he barely knew. Jason walked beside him, a self-appointed bodyguard glaring at anyone whose attention seemed less than supportive. "You sure about this meeting at lunch?" Jason asked as they navigated the crowded corridor. "Absolutely," Marcus replied, his determination overriding his anxiety. 15 students already signed up. Mr. Bennett is letting us use his classroom." The meeting of Marcus's newly formed Student Rights Awareness Group exceeded all expectations. More than 30 students crowded into the classroom, representing a cross-section of the school's diverse population. Marcus stood at the front, initially hesitant but growing more confident as he spoke. "What happened to me isn't unique," he explained. "It happens to kids who look like me every day. The difference is, my dad happened to be in a position to help, and the incident was captured on video. Most people don't have those advantages." A girl raised her hand. "My brother was stopped by police last month for matching a description. They made him sit on the curb for an hour before admitting they had the wrong person." Other students began sharing similar stories. The floodgates of previously unspoken experiences suddenly open. By the end of the lunch period, the group had established a mission: to document incidents of profiling, educate students about their rights, and advocate for community-wide accountability. At the FBI field office, the corruption investigation had reached a critical phase. Agent Carter briefed the team on their latest findings. "We've confirmed financial connections between Chief Morris, Councilman Hayes, and Lakeside Correctional Partners," he reported. "The money trail links directly to departmental policies, incentivizing officers to increase arrest rates in specific neighborhoods." David nodded, examining the complex financial diagram on the screen. "And the connection to the mall incidents?" Agent Ramirez took over. "We've documented 17 cases in the past 6 months involving minority teenagers detained at or near Greenfield Mall. In 14 cases, the initial suspicion was reported by the same 3 security guards, all former Lakeside PD officers now employed by a private security firm owned by a subsidiary of Lakeside Correctional Partners. The pieces were falling into place, revealing a corrupt system designed to funnel young people of color into the criminal justice system for financial gain." David turned to the team. "We're ready to move this to the U.S. Attorney. The civil rights violations alone will justify federal intervention, but combined with the corruption evidence, we're looking at a complete overhaul of the department." What had begun as a personal trauma for the Jefferson family had unveiled a systemic cancer affecting countless lives across Lakeside. As David gathered the final documents for the federal case, his phone buzzed with a text from Diana. "Marcus started a student group today. 30 kids showed up. He's finding his voice." Despite everything, David smiled. His son's resilience continually amazed him. The system that had tried to break Marcus had instead awakened something powerful within him, something that might help change the very system itself. 3 months after Marcus Jefferson was tackled to the ground outside Greenfield Mall, the city of Lakeside witnessed a day many thought would never come. FBI agents, accompanied by U.S. Marshals, entered the Lakeside Police Department headquarters at 6 in the morning, carrying boxes of evidence and federal warrants. Simultaneous raids occurred at City Hall, the offices of Lakeside Correctional Partners, and the homes of several key figures in the corruption investigation. By noon, news helicopters circled above the police station as Chief Morris, Councilman Hayes, and 4 senior officers were escorted out in handcuffs, charged with corruption, civil rights violations, and conspiracy. Officer Brian Keller, who had been suspended pending investigation, was notably absent from the initial arrests. Reports soon emerged that he had agreed to cooperate with federal prosecutors, turning state's evidence against his superiors in exchange for leniency. The morning news featured split-screen coverage of the arrests, alongside footage from the incident with Marcus, the connection between the two events now explicitly clear to the public. At a press conference that afternoon, U.S. Attorney Rebecca Chen outlined the scale of the corruption scheme. What began as an investigation into financial impropriety evolved into the discovery of a systemic effort to criminalize minority youth for profit, she explained to the assembled reporters. The evidence reveals that Lakeside Correctional Partners provided financial incentives to department leadership for maintaining high occupancy rates in their facilities, leading to discriminatory enforcement policies targeting vulnerable communities. She acknowledged the role of the Jefferson family in bringing the case to light. While the FBI had been investigating corruption for over 2 years, it was the mistreatment of a 14-year-old honor student that ultimately exposed the depth of the problem. Across town in the Lakeside High School auditorium, Marcus sat on stage alongside 5 other teenagers, each sharing their experiences with racial profiling to an audience of students, parents, and community members. The Student Rights Awareness Group had grown from 30 members to over 200 in 3 months, spreading to 3 neighboring schools and gaining national attention. Marcus spoke with a confidence that would have seemed impossible 3 months earlier. When I was lying face down on that concrete, I felt completely powerless, he told the audience. But that moment didn't define me. What defines me and all of us is how we respond to injustice, whether it happens to us personally or to our neighbors. He gestured to his diverse group of fellow student activists. We're not just talking about problems. We're creating solutions. Our Know Your Rights workshops have reached over 500 students. Our civilian observation program has documented dozens of police interactions. And most importantly, we've created a community where people don't look away when they see injustice happening. The audience responded with a standing ovation, led by Diana and David Jefferson, who watched their son with immeasurable pride. After the event, Mayor Richardson approached the family. "Marcus, your courage has transformed our city," he said, shaking the teenager's hand. "I wanted you to be among the first to know that the City Council has unanimously approved the creation of a civilian police oversight board with substantial enforcement powers. We're also terminating our contract with Lakeside Correctional Partners and transitioning to community-based rehabilitation programs." David nodded appreciatively. "These are important first steps, Mayor. The real test will be sustaining these changes once the media attention fades." The mayor's expression turned serious. "I understand that, which is why I'm hoping you'll consider a proposal. Lieutenant Peterson has been appointed interim police chief, and he's requesting FBI assistance in rebuilding the department with proper accountability measures. Given your experience with both law enforcement and the specific challenges in our community, your guidance would be invaluable." Before David could respond, Diana interjected. "While we appreciate the offer, Mayor Richardson, our family has some decisions to make about our future in Lakeside." Later that evening, the Jefferson family sat around their dining table, a rare moment of quiet reflection amid the ongoing storm of public attention. Marcus pushed his food around his plate, uncharacteristically hesitant. "Mom, Dad, there's something I need to tell you," he finally said. "I've been invited to speak at a national youth leadership conference about what happened and what we're doing about it. It would mean missing a week of school next month." Diana and David exchanged glances. "That's a significant opportunity," Diana said carefully. "How do you feel about it?" Marcus set down his fork. "Honestly, part of me is terrified, but a bigger part knows this story isn't just about me. It's about all the kids who don't have FBI agents for parents, who don't have live streams capturing what happens to them." David nodded slowly. "You've found your voice in all this. I couldn't be prouder of how you've handled yourself." He paused. "Which makes this next conversation more difficult." He reached for an envelope on the sideboard and placed it on the table. I've been offered a position in Washington, D.C., Deputy Director of the new FBI Civil Rights Enforcement Division. They want me to help create protocols for investigating patterns of discrimination nationwide. Marcus stared at the envelope. You're taking it, aren't you? David shook his head. This is a family decision. It would mean leaving Lakeside, your school, the group you've built. It would mean starting over somewhere new. Diana reached for her son's hand. But it would also mean your experience directly influencing national policy, potentially helping thousands of communities facing similar issues. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, processing the implications. When would we leave? Not until the end of the school year. If we decide to go, David assured him. I want you to finish what you've started here. 3 days later, at the Lakeside Community Center, a healing ceremony brought together diverse segments of the community that had been divided since the incident. Interfaith leaders, civic organizations, and youth groups gathered to acknowledge the pain of the past and commit to a more just future. Officer Brian Keller made an unexpected appearance, approaching the Jefferson family with visible trepidation. Marcus, he said, his voice barely audible above the ambient conversation. I know nothing I say can undo what happened, but I want you to know I'm truly sorry. Marcus studied the man who had tackled him to the ground 3 months earlier. Officer Keller looked smaller somehow, diminished by the weight of his actions and their consequences. I accept your apology, Marcus replied after a long moment. But apologies without change don't mean much. What are you doing to make sure this doesn't happen to someone else? Keller nodded soberly. Part of my plea agreement includes speaking to police cadets about racial bias and excessive force. I'll be sharing body camera footage of our encounter and explaining everything I did wrong. He hesitated. I've also been meeting with a therapist to understand why I saw a threat in a 14-year-old honor student just trying to buy headphones. The conversation was interrupted by the event organizer asking everyone to take their seats. As the ceremony began, David was invited to the podium to make an announcement. Many of you have followed our family's journey over these past few months, he began. What happened to Marcus exposed deep problems in our community, but it also revealed the strength and resilience of Lakeside's people. He paused, scanning the diverse audience. Today, I'm honored to announce that I've accepted an appointment to lead the new FBI Civil Rights Enforcement Division in Washington, D.C. In this role, I'll be working to ensure that the lessons learned in Lakeside help prevent similar injustices nationwide. A murmur ran through the crowd as David continued. This wasn't an easy decision. Our family has deep roots here, but sometimes our purpose takes us where we're most needed. The protocols and policies we develop will affect thousands of communities across America, potentially protecting countless young people like Marcus from experiencing what he endured. As David returned to his seat, Marcus leaned over and whispered, I'm proud of you, Dad. David wrapped an arm around his son's shoulders. I'm proud of us, he replied softly. All of us. The family that had been thrust into the spotlight by a moment of injustice had transformed their pain into purpose. Marcus had found his voice as a youth leader. Diana had developed a trauma-informed training program for police departments that was being adopted across the state, and David would now bring their lived experience to national policy. What had begun as a terrifying moment outside Greenfield Mall had catalyzed a movement for accountability and justice that would ripple far beyond the boundaries of Lakeside. As the ceremony concluded with a symbolic unity ritual, the Jefferson family stood together, their individual journeys now woven into something larger than themselves. They had not asked for this path, but they had walked it with courage and integrity, transforming a moment of powerlessness into a legacy of change. Have you ever experienced or witnessed racial profiling in your community? What steps do you think are most effective in creating meaningful change in our justice system? Stories like Marcus's happen every day across America, often without the cameras or FBI agents to intervene. By sharing this video, you can help raise awareness about the ongoing reality of racial discrimination and the importance of standing up against injustice. Please like, comment with your thoughts on how we can work together to create more equitable communities. Subscribe to see more stories that shine a light on important social issues, and share this video with someone who needs to hear this message.